Greetings, we are live. So my name is Jim Wickens and I am with NFL Draft Fanatics, and this is going to be a brief demonstration of the interactive player boards in the simulator. This is a mock draft simulator. It is similar but yet quite different. So what makes it significantly different than anything out there is that when a fan does a mock draft, the player boards are going to move. So when I mean by move is when you do a mock draft, you are essentially influencing what the next person that uses the simulator will see. And I want to demonstrate that. Part of the reason we're doing this is that it is really cold and windy outside. So wherever you are, if you are in the Northeast or the upper Midwest, I hope you are warm and safe right now. And if you want to try a mock draft, feel free to go to NFLDraftFanatics.com. And if you're watching the podcast live, give it a try. And if you're watching this on record, on playback, give it a like, give it a subscribe on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start by doing a 2-round mock, and we're going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. And I want to point out a couple of things here before we jump in. Specifically, we need to see that draft card depth is set to 8. So that means if a team doesn't select the top player on their draft card, they're going to be picking in the top 8. That's the default, and that's the maximum for that setting. And then the draft randomness is how many teams don't select the top player. So the default is 2, which is the minimum. So 2 teams won't select the top player. And those 2 teams, at least one of them is going to pick the 8th player on their draft card. And I'm going to turn on first round BPA. That way we can see who is the top player in the first round on every team's board. So I've got that on. We're doing a 2-round mock for the Ravens, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay. So we're going in. We're going to do a mock draft. But I also want to pay attention to what players does every team pick in round 1. Okay. So it's going through and it's doing round 1 right now. And let's just take a quick look. Okay. So Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers, Joe Alt, Olu, Penix, Turner, Mims, Kinstry, Nix, McCarthy, Fontenot, Odunze, Verse, DeJean, okay, Newton, Latham, Coleman, Latu, Arnold, A.D. Mitchell, Brian Thomas, Trice, Flaga, Morgan, Neighbors. Okay, so I was saying that out loud because I'm making some mental notes of what we're going to do to demonstrate the interaction. So like Dallas is a good team to target. Let's say we don't like the Jordan Morgan pick there for Dallas. Let's say they're going to go to a different position. That'll be the board we manipulate. So, okay, so what do the Ravens do? The Ravens, let's say they go Kingsley. Okay, he's currently 75 on their draft board. I'm taking him in round 1. So when I pick a player, he's not going to be 75 when I'm done. He's going to move up. Now, did he move up to be the top player on the board? Difficult to say, probably not, but it is possible. It's easier to go from like number 30 to 1 or number 40 to 1, but to go from like 75 to 1, he's probably in the top 8, but he may not be number 1. Okay, and then in round 2, if Lassiter or Tampa is there, those would probably be good picks for the Ravens. So I'm going to take Lassiter. He's 49. Okay, and we finished there, right? So we did a 2-round mock, and now let's go talk about the Cowboys, right? So the Cowboys had an offensive tackle go, and let's say, nah, that's not the tackle the Cowboys would take. We can change the board. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Dallas, and we're going to do this thing called the first round challenge. Now, we could come in and just do 5 mocks for Dallas, pick 5 players in round 1, and try to manipulate the boards that way. The first round challenge is a good way to do 5 mocks right in a row. So this is 5 one-round mocks for Dallas. So I'm going to come in, and I believe, again, last time they took Jordan Morgan. So the simulator's going to go through, and it's going to do a simulation. Now, the algorithm for a first round challenge is a little bit different. So you might see some wacky picks by other teams in the first round. But the idea is you can see that Morgan is the highest player on Dallas's board right here. But like Dallas, they need corner and wide receiver. So let's look, if we look here, the only wide receiver in the top 8 for Dallas is Neighbors. Okay. So let's do 5 wide receivers for Dallas. Okay. Neighbors will be the first one. And let's go try to find some more wide receivers. Okay. There were no other wide receivers in the top 8 for Dallas. So we know that if we get a mock draft to take a wide receiver for Dallas, we know that we're the ones that did it as part of this exercise. Okay. So if we look wide receiver, what other wide receiver could go in round 1? I like Leggett at the end of round 1. So that's the second first round that we've done for Dallas. Okay. Now it's going through and it's doing another round 1, and we're going to go find another wide receiver. So when you do a first round challenge, every first round has to be unique. It won't let me pick Neighbors. It won't let me pick Leggett. I have to come in and find others. So Troy Franklin, round 1. I saw A.D. Mitchell there, so that would be another player we could target round 1. So this is the third unique first round that we've done for Dallas. And I see we have a few viewers online. Feel free to pop into the chat and say hi. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. So Keon Coleman to Dallas in round 1. So at this point, I've done Neighbors, Leggett, Franklin, Coleman. I've got one more pick to complete the first round challenge, and I'm going to do A.D. Mitchell. Okay, so I just did a first round challenge. I picked 5 wide receivers for Dallas in round 1. Okay, so let's go back in, and we're going to do another 2-round mock. This time, let's do the 49ers. So we're going to do a 2-round mock, and basically I'm just trying to pick somebody that's behind Dallas. That way we can see who Dallas took. We've already done the Ravens, so this time I'm going to do the 49ers. Okay, so let's go take a look and see who did – oh, there was one other thing I forgot to do. Hold on a minute. I'm going to go back. Okay, we're going to do a 2-round mock. I want first-round BPA on. I forgot to hit that last time. So we're going to do 49ers, first-round BPA, 2-round. And now we're going to go back in and go. Okay, so what we want to do is pay attention to who did Baltimore take and who did Dallas take. Okay, so we didn't get a wide receiver to go to number 1 on Dallas's board. Okay, so San Francisco, cornerback, wide receiver. So again, let's look at here. So the top available wide receivers for San Francisco, he's 11th on the draft card. I'm going to take Troy Franklin. And then second round, they have a DB right at the top of their board. Okay, so let's take a look to see. We did check Dallas, right? So Dallas took Verse, and BB still went number 1 overall. So we haven't changed their boards enough. Okay, so we're going to come in and we're going to do the same thing we did with Dallas, where we're doing a first round challenge and we're only going to do wide receivers. So sometimes you can do a single first round challenge and those 5 players could have shot to the top. None of those receivers had been picked often enough by Dallas fans to change. So you can see Dallas last time took Verse. This time he's off the board. So let's take A.D. Mitchell, Troy Franklin, and notice he's 13th. I think Mitchell, he was like 14th or 15th. I don't remember exactly what his number was, where his rank was. Okay. Coleman was 11th. Legette is 13th. Okay. And what other wide receivers could they take in round one? Brian Thomas, maybe. Corley, round one. Okay. So we did A.D. Mitchell, Troy Franklin, Keon Coleman, Legette, Corley. Okay. So we're going to now come in and we're going to do the same demonstration where, okay, this time let's do Miami and let's pay attention to who Dallas, San Francisco, and Baltimore selected. So we're going to do a 2-round draft, first round BPA. So that first round BPA takes the randomness out of the first round. Every team should take the highest player on their board. Okay. So in this case, Miami, what defensive linemen are there? We'll take Leonard Taylor. Okay. So let's take a look at who got taken. So Neighbors got taken by Dallas that time. Morgan is still going number one overall, or I should say number one to San Francisco. And BB has been picked so often by Ravens fans that his value is really high. So each time you pick a player, their value increases. And to get, for example, BB or Morgan to move off of that top spot for those teams, you may have to not pick them in round one many times to see their value go down and whichever player you like go up. Okay. And then what are they going to do? So this is Miami, right? So does Miami need a safety? So let's see what centers are there. We'll do Zach Frazier. Okay. So already I couldn't, if you notice, like Neighbors has been dropping. So Neighbors isn't high enough on a couple of teams' draft boards to go earlier. So again, this can be fixed. So fans have control of the board. Let's do a first round challenge for Buffalo and make sure Neighbors is high on Buffalo's board. Okay. So that way Neighbors is not the player that is falling that late. And Neighbors shouldn't even fall to the 24th spot. But we'll go and we'll make sure that you see. So Neighbors is under Mitchell. So we'll do Neighbors to Buffalo. And then I'm purposely going to look for Buffalo for anybody that's outside of number 8. So Troy Franklin is 9th. So that's greater than 8. So I'm purposely picking players that are outside of the top 8 whenever I do this first round challenge for Buffalo. So Legette in round 1, maybe. And then is there a cornerback greater than 8? So Quinion Mitchell, he's 18. And center. Jackson Powers Johnson is 9th, so we'll go with him. Okay, so with Buffalo, I took some players. So Neighbors, I was trying to get him to the top, and then I was purposely picking players that were outside of the top 9. So if we see any of these players simulated to Buffalo, we know we were the ones that put the player there as part of this demonstration. Okay, so we've done that. Now, where else could Neighbors go? So Neighbors keeps dropping, right? So now we should say, well, where would a logical landing spot for Neighbors be? I could see Jacksonville, and that's even late for Neighbors. So the Chargers are picking Bowers, and I know that there's one of the analysts, he likes Brock Bowers, so I'm going to leave Bowers up at the top there for him right now. The Jaguars and the Bengals would each have wide receiver on their radar, likely in round 1. So let's make sure we see where Neighbors is here. So we're going to do a first-round challenge for Jacksonville, and then we'll come around and we will do another one for Cincinnati. And we're going to make sure Neighbors is getting to the top of each of those teams' boards. So he's obviously not very high right now. Okay. So if we look at wide receivers here, Neighbors is 12th on the Jacksonville board. So I'm going to pick Neighbors, and he was 17 overall, 12th best player available. I just took him in round 1. Another player, I think A.D. Mitchell to the Jaguars in round 1 makes sense. And then, again, I'm going to be looking for players that are outside of the top 8. So they need edge and corner. So I want to find an edge or a corner that is greater than 8 that could go in round 1. Chop Robinson. He was 38th at the time that I picked him. Okay, and we're still looking for corner and edge, and we want that number to be greater than 8. So, not my favorite list right there. Okay, Jared Verse is 41. That could be a good pick for Jacksonville. And then let's look at edge and corner again. Jonah Ellis is 10th. Okay, so we manipulated the Jacksonville board with a first-round challenge. We're going to go do the same exact thing for the Bengals. And the entire goal of doing these first-round challenges is we're picking 5 players to move up, one of which will be Neighbors because he keeps dropping. So we have control. Fans have control of the board. So you can see Neighbors is now at the top of the board for the Bengals. Okay, so the Bengals wide receivers that they would consider in round 1, definitely Keon Coleman. And then more wide receivers. So Leggett is 16th. Worthy is 24th. I definitely like Worthy to the Bengals. His Neighbors gone. Yeah, Neighbors is already off the board. Okay. So Troy Franklin. Okay, so who else would the Bengals consider in round 1? Chop Robinson. So the default algorithm, again, is each team selects the top player on the team-specific player board at the time the draft pick is made. When you're in a first-round challenge, there are some exceptions to that within the algorithm to generate some randomness to see if players drop. I definitely like Dallas Turner to the Bengals. And okay, so we did Coleman, Worthy, Franklin, Chop Robinson, Dallas Turner. Okay. So now let's go back in and we're going to do the same demonstration with Baltimore. Actually, let's do a 3-round draft and we'll do Carolina because Carolina's first pick is at the top of round 2. So what we're going to do is we can just watch who's being selected in round 1. And Jim forgot a button. First round BPA. Got to make sure that that's on. That way each team is taking the top player on their board. Okay, so we're going to do the Panthers, 3 rounds. First round BPA is on. Okay, so still couldn't get the wide receiver to go to Dallas with all of that. You can see Buffalo's picking a different player now at the top. So Legette is now at the top. And I can see that there's people watching the podcast. So you can see that Neighbors is now the top player on the Jacksonville board. He got there because we did that. We did that earlier in the demonstration with the first round challenge. However, we didn't do enough with the Bengals to move whoever their top player was. We didn't do enough to move Newton off the board with whatever we did with the first round challenge and who we moved up. Okay. Okay, so what guards are available? Not like in that list. What wide receivers are available? So Worthy, Carolina, probably can't go wrong. As long as you select a good player for Carolina, it's a good pick, right? And then I don't think they would take an injured guard. Okay, so now we're going to go back in and we're going to do a first round challenge again for Dallas. And the reason is I want to get a wide receiver. I want to prove we can get a wide receiver to go to the top of Dallas's board. So we're going to do 5 first rounds for Dallas. Every single player I pick in this is going to be a wide receiver. So what wide receivers are falling in the draft to Dallas, and we will get the 5 best players. So you can see Latham is sitting pretty high on Dallas's board. So he's 5. So I need to find a wide receiver that's a little, so like Worthy, he's 87. So when you're trying to move somebody off the top, find players further down and pick them to move up first. So I need to find one more wide receiver that was further down the draft card that could possibly go in round 1. But that's not happening with that list right there. Okay, is there a tight end there? Okay, so Sanders, he's 82. I'm going to take him in the first round to Dallas. That might be a little bit, but that's the back of the first round, so that could be okay. I do believe Dallas needs a tight end. So, okay, so then the next players that we would look at, now we're going to try to say, okay, Franklin, he was 12th. And again, I'm skipping Latham every single time. So by doing this, when you skip a player, their value is going to subtract. Now, how much their value subtracts, I'm not going to give away too much of the algorithm or anything, but there was a reason I wanted to pick the first couple times players that were further down, because that would actually knock their value down more. We'll do Legette. Okay, so we did Worthy, Sanders, Franklin, AD Mitchell, Legette. Okay, so at this point, I've picked Franklin to Dallas more than once. I've picked AD Mitchell to Dallas more than once and Legette to Dallas more than once. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to come back in and we're going to try to do that Baltimore. We're going to do a 2-round mock for Baltimore, and we want to pay attention to see who did Dallas take? I believe that was the second first round challenge we did for Dallas. I don't think it was the third. I think it was the second. So if we look, Dallas still taking Latham. So again, I can keep ignoring him, but he's been picked enough by Dallas fans that he's high enough on their player rankings that I've moved each of those wide receivers up, but I didn't move them up enough to pass Latham yet. Okay, so this goes to show you a user has control, right? So we've been able to exert the control. For example, Neighbors went to Jacksonville because we put him at the top of the Jacksonville board. Chop Robinson was 40th when we drafted him for the Bengals. He was in the 40s. We took him in a first round challenge. That's how he got high enough for the Bengals to be taking him in round 1. So we had control over these 2 picks, but there's enough Dallas users of the simulator that they've done enough mock drafts that Latham is sitting at the top of the Dallas board. And for Latham to get knocked off, either somebody earlier is going to need to take him, or fans need to agree with me that those wide receivers that we moved up, I need a second opinion, right? I can keep doing first round challenges and eventually I'll get that board to move. But I'm not going to sit here on a podcast and do like 20 first round challenges just to try to get that one player off the top. Okay. So at that point I forgot to hit 2 rounds. So that was a very brief demonstration. I think it took all of about 25 minutes. I don't want this to be like drawn out. There's only so much watching somebody else do mock drafts, I think, that a human can tolerate. So recognize at NFLDraftFanatics.com, the player boards that we have designed move. Okay. And if you ever want to see your team's player boards, you can go to Team Needs, find the team, and then look at the player list. So we'll scroll down, we'll find Dallas's player list, and then we'll close out the podcast. So if we look for Dallas, there's a player list over here. And Dallas's player list looks something like this. So one time I think we saw Verse show up in our first round challenge. You can see Latham is 6th on their board. You can see Troy Franklin has made it into the top 8. And then you see Leggett, Coleman. Sanders moved from about 40th to 13th. Right? So Sanders was somewhere between 80 and 40 when I took him in the first round challenge. He moved all the way up to 13. And then you see Worthy. Now, a couple things to think about. Okay. So you see Marvin Harrison Jr. is 9th for Dallas. So why is he not number 1? Well, very simply put, Dallas fans have picked the 8 players that you see above him. Those players have actually been picked. So when you pick a player, they move up in value. If you can't pick a player, their value will not go up. So Marvin Harrison Jr. had a high value when we, imported the player list, but the values increase when fans pick them. And if fans can't pick them because Dallas is picking so late, that's why Marvin Harrison is not sitting at number 1. Okay. Well, again, my name is Jim Wickens. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching this 30-minute demonstration of how an interactive mock draft simulator works. Thank you very much to everybody on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, which is watching this podcast. Thank you so much. You are appreciated. And until next time, thank you very much.